All right, 10 p.m. now on the West Coast, 1 a.m. here in New York. This is the last word with Lawrence O'Donnell. Obviously, I'm not Lawrence O'Donnell. I'm Steve Kornacki. Lawrence is going to be coming up. He's going to interview former Deputy National Security Advisor Ben Rhodes about what Vladimir Putin says about Donald Trump in a new interview. Lawrence also going to have an update on the important story of children being separated from their parents at the U.S. border. That, again, is coming up. First, though, breaking news. California, the primary election tonight, the results coming in, the biggest state, the biggest stakes on the biggest day of primaries. So let's go over here and tell you again, the story here in California, one we've been following, is this question of there are 7 House races, 7 congressional races where Democrats think they can flip the seats. Republicans hold them in California. Clinton won them in 2016. Democrats think they can flip them this fall, and because of that, maybe flip the House. The question, though, they have this wild top 2 primary system in California. Can Democrats make the ballot in November? They got to be in the top 2 in these districts tonight. So let's start. This is the 48th district. This is Dana Rohrabacher, Republican incumbent, very controversial. Let's see if we can get this up on the screen. Here we go. So again, top 2 primary. Everybody gets the same ballot regardless of party. Top 2 candidates, regardless of party, get through. And you see right now, this is a very tense situation for Democrats. Dana Rohrabacher, he is the incumbent. He is safely moving ahead right there. The question, though, is who's going to be behind him? You see blue. Right now, you have a Democrat here, Hans Kierstead, who is running in second place. But look, you can see the difference there. You're looking at less than 400 votes separating the front-running Democrat from the next Republican, Scott Baugh. Now, the issue here is there's a split in the Republican Party in this district, this part of California. Rohrabacher, we say he's controversial. Baugh used to be his ally, doesn't like the direction that Rohrabacher's going, especially, I think, on Russia, Putin, those sorts of things. So, look at this. You've got maybe, if enough Republicans are with Baugh, that sort of dissident faction, the Democratic vote spread out a little bit here. More Republicans, if this holds, if what we're seeing holds, more Republicans in this district voting than Democrats, or more voting for Republicans than Democrats. This would be, if Baugh is able to leapfrog over Kierstead, this would be that scenario Democrats are dreading. Still plenty of vote to come in. We're going to see no call on this. And we say in California, these things can go late in the night. They can go to the next day. They can go for days and days and days. So this may be one that we are looking at for a while. Let's take a look at the 39th district here. A lot of this one is in Orange County. Now, this is an open seat. Ed Royce, Republican, longtime incumbent, not running for re-election. This is interesting because you've got young Kim. This is a Republican now moving well into first place here. Gil Cisneros, the Democrat, he's a lottery winner. He spent a lot of his own money in this race. Democrats backing him. They've got him in second place. Let me show you what Democrats did here. This candidate here, we don't even have a picture of. This is a candidate, sort of a far-right candidate, Phil Liberatore. Democrats tried to put a little bit of energy with mailers and some other things behind him at the end to get Republicans excited, maybe the Republican base excited about voting for him, to dilute the Republican vote. And you see Liberatore moving up there. I think we can show the second screen. A lot of clutter here. You see him at 12%. These were the 2 Republicans Democrats were most worried about getting into that second spot. You see Huff and Nelson back here. Let's go back to that first screen on 39. You see them back in single digits in these returns. Can we go back to that first screen? There you go. And Liberatore up there at 12. Again, we got more votes to come in. We're going to see. But this is exactly what Democrats wanted to see in this race with their candidate there in second place. So again, this would be a Clinton-won Republican district. Let me show you the 49th district. Another one here. This is Darrell Issa, not running again, open seat. Now, the good news, if you're a Republican, is you got one candidate up there in the top 2. Diane Harkey, she seems to be pulling away. The bad news for Republicans is that shutout scenario. I don't think we can show you the full list here, but you got 2 Democrats. You keep going. You have a Democrat here, a Democrat here. A lot of blue under that first place. So Democrats, doesn't look like that that lockout thing is going to happen in the 49th. Here's one, though. Let me call it up. This was not on the radar coming into the night. Jeff Denham, Republican congressman, incumbent. We've called him now the winner. He's going to come in first. Question is, who's going to come in second? This is a sleeper that snuck up on people early on tonight. This guy's name is Ted House. We don't have a picture of him. Again, this is a grassroots, very conservative candidate. He is sneaking up there. Josh Harder is the front-running Democrat right now, but you see only about 700 votes separating them, and you got a lot of Democrats. If we showed you the next screen, a lot of Democrats behind them. Very spread out Democratic vote. Harder ahead right now. Can he hold on to that, or can House get up there? Because again, if House were to get up there, That would be a lockout for Democrats, one that they didn't see coming in a district, the 10th. This is one of those Clinton districts. So that's what we're looking at. We're going to have more votes coming in the next few hours. And again, California, they do have a lot that come in and get counted tomorrow and in the days to come. So I'm not sure how much we'll end up being able to call. And by the way, we said that governor's race. One other thing to note quickly, I do just want to show you the governor's race in California. The question coming in, could Republicans get that second spot? They're going to get the second spot. John Cox, we've now projected it'll be Gavin Newsom and Cox, the Republican. Republicans will get a statewide candidate for that marquee office there in California. And there is some talk here that Republicans may be a little better in that race than they were expecting. So joining us now to break down these results, to break down results in 7 other states on this big primary night, we have Maria Teresa Kumar, the president and CEO of Voto Latino and an MSNBC contributor, Jason Johnson, politics editor at TheRoot.com and an MSNBC contributor, and John Podhoretz, editor of Commentary Magazine and an MSNBC contributor. And Maria, I'll start with you, and I'll just, I've talked for a long time here. I'm curious, looking at those results in California, the suspense there right now, what do you make of this?
Well, I have to say, full disclosure, California is my home state, so what's happening there, not only do I find fascinating, but I think it's actually quite telling that you have a jungle primary that is going to determine the way that could possibly actually shape up Congress, and I think that is what the Republicans are concerned with. Look, the fact that even Rohrabacher has a lead, but he also has such competition even among his own party with the person that's in third place is testament that people just don't like what's happening right now with his dotted line to the Russian investigation, full stop. But I do think that we're going to see something really interesting in Gilson Cisneros, because most people are going to come up and basically more than likely actually give that district a run for its money. What's going to be curious, though, is whether or not in the Central Valley you're going to get a lot of the Latino voters that are young voters, that Next Gen has dumped in a lot of money, that Voto Latinos on the ground. There's a lot of possibility and potential in that, because you have folks that are finally coming of age that just did not participate in politics because they just weren't old enough. So that is going to be really the coin toss, is that whole swath that's behind you potentially going to turn purple in the midterms.
All right, and John Podhoretz, we have numbers coming in, we have news, we have anecdotal reports. Somebody just handed me one. I haven't confirmed, but an interesting piece of information. If we can confirm it, we'll get back to that. But let me ask you about California. There are 7 Hillary Clinton won Republican-held House districts. That's almost a third of what Democrats need to take back the House. One of the questions heading into tonight was, how would Republicans feel about those districts coming out of it? When you look at this, what do you think Republicans should be taking away right now?
Well, I think this jungle primary system is so singular and bizarre, and all this gamesmanship that's going on with Democrats trying to goose the vote of extremely conservative Republicans and all of that. I think it's very hard to take a sort of general lesson. I mean, if it happens that, say, 2 of these districts end up locking out the Democrats from the top 2, or 1, that's insanely significant, because under most circumstances, if they had not, if California hadn't passed this reform that started in 2012, you could probably assume that in a favorable election for Democrats, all those 7 would go. All of them. I mean, that's what a wave is, right? Is that everything sort of tends to go in one direction. But if you institutionally structure it so that can be prevented as an unintended consequence of a reform, you could have sort of American politics totally flipped on its head. So that Democrats could have won, could have taken the House, and will not be able to by 1 vote or 1 seat or 2 seats.
It is, Jason, fascinating, because this system in California, everybody runs on the same ballot, every voter gets the same ballot, top 2. This was passed, as John said, by referendum. Is this something that might, you think, be revisited after this year? I think I saw a poll today. It still seems popular with California residents, but you think a blue state, very blue state, Trump's always blaming it for his popular vote loss, and yet the reality for Democrats is some uncomfortable situations right now on the ballot there.
Well, yeah, the presumption when this was passed is that it was going to moderate candidates, right? But as a political scientist, I can tell you we have something called Derverger's law, where basically if you have a first-past-the-post system, that tends to moderate candidates anyway. It tends to moderate and limit the number of parties that you have. So I understand why this was passed. It doesn't end up necessarily being a good idea long-term, and you can create a lot of different problems because, you know, what you essentially have, you know, a lot of people call this a jungle primary. I call it like the Hunger Games primary. I mean, you've just got all these different Democrats who are trying to kill each other and slash each other and hope that they can get to the end. That's not necessarily the most effective thing you want as a party. Yes, we don't want this sort of old school Tammany Hall where the leadership in smoke-filled rooms decides who the Democrats are, but there has to be some semblance of party control and party unity to say, look, you've got 7%, you need to go. You've got 4%, you need to go. At the state level, you see this like in a mayor's race, right? If a lot of the cleavages are racial, you'll have a lot of the black candidates say, look, we can't have 5 black people run against this one white person. People got to get out. We can't have this number of women, et cetera, et cetera. But that may be a lesson that the California Democratic Party has to learn as well. They've got to be able to tell some of these lower tier people, you're not going to win. You need to get out of this race. But that's hard to do. People are passionate. And there's a very fine line between encouraging victory and seeming like you're squelching dissent and activism within your own party.
Well, that's true, but I
think the challenge, though, in California is at the moment the party basically makes a nod and says, we don't want you on the ballot, that all of a sudden revolutionizes a lot of the more progressive folks. That's actually counterintuitive. So the idea that anybody in California would basically tote the party line, I think, is testament to why we have a jungle primary. That just wouldn't work.
Yeah, well, being seen as sort of the establishment's out to get you can be a campaign.
But, you know, what we have here is a national trend. We saw it start in the Republican Party in 2009, 2010, in which being an insurgent in your own party is a net positive for some people, number one. And number two, the weakness of the state and national parties and their inability to do what parties did with a flick of a finger just 20 years ago, and certainly throughout American history, which is to say, no, you're not running. I mean, if you keep running, we're gonna ruin your business, or we'll give you something so that you could run next time, or we'll set up a legislative seat for you.
But you're touching upon those also the decentralization of fundraising, the fact that all of a sudden a lot of candidates can fundraise on their own without the party line. That is basically what gives this really idea that the movement is coming from the people, that the party's not basically doing the Tammany Hall, as was mentioned earlier, but it's really the people moving it forward. And it's if you were to ask me what has changed in politics more than anything, is the decentralization of traditional funding that has come to those candidates, where it's usually 5 or 6 people that decide to write the big checks. Now it's basically a level playing field that any person can give $1 and give people really boosts to actually run a candidacy.
One thing that you look at. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Jason. No, go ahead.
Yeah. So you look at like a district like 48, right, where you've got Chris Yott and you've got Reuter, like. Those guys are only 1 or 2 percentage points apart. You weren't going to be able to convince either one of them to drop out of the race. And that has been, I mean, objectively speaking, that's been one of the nastiest races amongst Democrats at any point that you could see in this California primary. This is Galifianakis versus Farrell. Like, this is campaign. This is really, really ugly between these two. But they both have absolutely legitimate reasons to be in the race. And so, sometimes this is the cost of democracy. You have to have people willing to sort of slug it out. And I think in the end, I doubt Democrats are probably going to get locked out of any of these seats. A lot of the Democratic votes are going to come in later. But I think that the way that consultants have been sweating this night out, it is unlikely we're going to see something like this get adopted in Virginia or Georgia or other purple states that wouldn't want to run this risk.
And we should say, I just in terms of this question of how this is all happening in California, the late vote, all of that, what has happened in the past is that basically tonight and into tomorrow, about 2/3 of the vote generally gets counted. And then over the next month, over the next number of weeks, the other third gets counted. And it is true, when I went back and looked at this, if you look statewide, if you look at the Trump-Clinton race in 2016, there was a big swing, sort of post-election. A lot of that late vote favored Democrats. A lot of that's coming from the highly populated Democratic centers, L.A. County. When you look at some of these individual congressional districts that have been represented by Republicans for a while, that big Democratic swing was not as prevalent late. We looked at like the 49th district, the ISA district. The late vote was 51-49 Democrat there in 2016. So I'm not sure how much is going to change. Maybe it's different in a primary, but it just points to how many variables there are in a system like this that you just don't have in that many other states, and that hasn't been tested that many times here. The ballot initiative is less than 10 years ago, and this is what we've got. I do want to, in a few minutes left, though, shift to the broader sort of national implications here. One question I always look at on special election nights, on primaries, is the question of energy. And Maria, I'm wondering, are you seeing any clues here to that? Energy for Democrats, energy for Republicans in California, anywhere else tonight?
Well, we definitely saw, once again, 60% of the people that are winning so far are women. So the wave of women coming in, both on the Democratic and Republican side, is definitely on it. But I also have to recognize that we have just elected the very first Native American to Congress from New Mexico, and it looks like also we have a Latina governor that's coming also from New Mexico. So those are good wins. But I think that you're also going to see just a map where in Montana you have while Tester won, you're actually going to have a Republican possibility carrying on as well. So you're going to still have a lot of close races, but it's not as, I would actually garner to say this, it's not as much of a wave as we had seen in Virginia, as we've seen in Georgia and Alabama. So I think that really a lot of the stuff that is coming in from the base, from the Republican Party, they're just as energized as we had seen as previously within the Democratic Party.
That is,
and I think that's very true with what we're seeing right now with the results in California. You should be expecting much bigger wave in some of these really close congressional districts that are held by Republicans, and you're just not seeing that.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah. We'll see the late vote here, but that is my initial reaction.
Right, and so that jives with information over the past month to suggest that all sorts of, that things are sort of closing, right? That Democratic enthusiasm is now being matched by Republican enthusiasm, that the generic ballot that says, do you want a Democrat or Republican to be your congressman in November, is narrowing. And, you know, I think everybody sort of assumed that the level of Democratic enthusiasm, wild over enthusiasm compared to Republicans in 2017, was going to carry through to 2018. And so far, we don't see that much evidence of that. I would say the Democratic enthusiasm is still greater than the Republicans, and Democrats are turning out. And there was this result in a state Senate race in Missouri that was carried by, that no one thought a Democrat would carry, and a Democrat has carried it. So there are little bits and pieces to suggest this. But if I were a Democratic political consultant or a person in the congressional or senatorial campaign committees, I'm not sure I would look at tonight and say, we're on our way. I mean, I don't think you would say, oh my God, you know, batten down the hatches, it's a disaster. But
well, is that, yeah, Jason, how do you feel about that, Jason? This idea that the blue wave, post-Alabama, post-PA18 was this huge tie. Do you feel it's receded at all? How do you look at it?
No, I think it's still going, Steve. Here's the thing. It's like in sports. It's like, hey, scoreboard, right? Democrats just flipped a 45th seat. And I, you know, as a political scientist, I've never been a big fan of the generic congressional ballot. I've always thought there were some statistical and sort of theoretical problems with reading too much into that. What I have always seen is this: if you've got low ballot special elections that people are enthusiastic enough to switch seats, but 10, 15, 24% flips from how those seats voted for Trump just 2 years ago, that shows that there is a grassroots level of enthusiasm for Democrats. I think California is a bit of an anomaly because it's a, you know, you have so many different unique factors here. I don't think the perceived lack of enthusiasm or lack of turnout in California can necessarily be seen to be indicative of what's happening in the rest of the country. I think the Democrats are fine. And I have no dog in this fight, but it seems to me that their success at the ground level with county commissioners, with state house and state senate races, seems to me these people are going to be enthusiastic and driven to vote, just like Republicans will be, but the Democratic enthusiasm might be spread throughout more states.
And that stuff
something that I would actually really focus on. What the Republicans have done, they have tacked away from their tax plan. If you remember Connor Lamb, they were really going to try to test whether or not the tax plan would stick to the Republicans. That utterly failed. So their tactic now is actually shifting to anti-immigrant rhetoric. In the primaries, over 14,000 ads were run that were anti-immigrant, and that is ginning up the base. The Democrats are going to have to come up with a stronger economic message, stronger clarity of why this anti-immigrant fervor is not part of the American fabric DNA, because it is the results tonight show that it's actually working to bring in folks that are some more extreme members of the Republican Party.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there, but everyone please stick around, and we're going to be back with updated numbers later in the hour. And coming up next, Lawrence on the big picture in the Russia investigation and what Vladimir Putin says about his relationship with Donald Trump. And if you want to catch Lawrence's original opening segment tonight on the Trump-Mueller investigation, you can watch the video on the Last Word website.
Most people come to LA with big dreams. We came with big appetites.
With Expedia, you can book a flight, hotel, car, and activity all in one place. Everything you need to go. Expedia.
Mine's way better.
This one's below market price and has Bluetooth. Same here, but this one has leather seats.
Use the Cars.com app to compare price, features, and value.
We'd heard of Angie's List, but we didn't really know what it did.
I know they've got reviews for home pros, but so do a lot of websites.
I didn't want to pay to join. Then I found out it's free. Wait, it's free?
Free to check ratings, read reviews.
And Angie's List reviews are written by real customers. So I know the pros have done quality work.
And now they'll even match my project with a few qualified pros for the job.
And it's all free.
To get the most reviews from real customers, all for free, go to angieslist.com today.
If you have a garden, you know weeds are low-down little scoundrels. Draw the line with Roundup. The Sure Shot wand extends with a protective shield and targets weeds more precisely right down to the root. Roundup, trusted for over 40 years.
Here you go, little guy. A cockroach can survive submerged underwater for 30 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Not getting in today. Not on my watch.
Pests never stop trying to get in. At Terminix, we never stop working to keep them out. That's what makes us America's leading pest and termite control provider, because we do whatever it takes to stop them in their tracks. For a free pest estimate, call 1-800-905-6985. Take action to protect your home today. And if pests ever do come back, so will we. 100% satisfaction guaranteed. For a free pest estimate, call 1-800-905-6985 or visit Terminix.com. Terminix, defenders of home.
We got a reminder from David Korn today to remember to focus on the big picture. And that is a reminder that we need over and over again. David Korn wrote an important piece in Mother Jones today, arguing for a simple reset of our focus on what the Russia investigation is actually about. And I will paraphrase David's elegant summary to simply this. Russia launched an information warfare against the United States during our presidential election with the intention of hurting the Democratic candidate and helping the Republican candidate. The Republican candidate's campaign then tried to collude secretly with Russia in a meeting at Trump Tower, while the candidate himself was publicly trying to collude with Russia by publicly begging Russia to steal and publish the Democratic candidate's emails. The Republican presidential candidate and his campaign aligned themselves with the country that invaded the United States, invaded the election of the American president. As David Korn put it, the Trump team, quote, assisted a foreign adversary as it was attacking the United States. The evidence is rock solid. They committed a profound act of betrayal. That is the scandal. And that is what we should never lose sight of when we examine the details of the scandal, the dozens of scandals that exist within and under that scandal, the scandal of the Trump campaign's deliberate alignment with Russia in attacking the United States. With that in mind, it is not surprising that in a new interview with Austrian television, Vladimir Putin brags about his close relationship with Donald Trump and about how often the two men speak on the phone, including something we've never heard before. Quote, indeed, Donald Trump and I have firstly met more than once at various international venues, and secondly, we regularly talk over the phone. Our foreign affairs departments and special services are working fairly well together in areas of mutual interest, above all in the fight against international terrorism. This work is ongoing. We've learned something new about President Barack Obama's view of Vladimir Putin from Ben Rhodes' extraordinary new book, It says that President Obama neither liked nor loathed Putin, nor did he subscribe to the view that Putin was all that tough. If he was that sure of himself, Obama said, he wouldn't have his picture taken riding around with his shirt off. Joining us now is Ben Rhodes, former Deputy National Security Advisor and speechwriter for President Obama, and now an MSNBC political contributor. His new book is The World as It Is, a memoir of the Obama White House. And Ben, you have rave reviews for this book. It is not the typical inside the White House memoir. You are not trying to show how right you were about everything while everyone else was wrong. But take us into President Obama's view of Vladimir Putin. It seems like such a clear and simple form of analysis, looking at Putin's public grandiosity and Obama, who didn't have that, wondering what's that about?
Yeah. Well, part of it, that is missed, Lawrence, is that the first time Putin was president, he was flush with oil revenues, and he could stay in power by spreading money around. The second time, he didn't have that. Russia was kind of on its back foot. And so what did he do? He reached for this brand of politics rooted in kind of tribalism, racism, nativism, make Russia great again, really. Look back to the Soviet Union, and has to be photographed riding around with his shirt off. And Obama didn't have a lot of patience with that kind of posturing. And frankly, he thought in the long view, all Putin was doing was hurting Russia. But obviously, he's caused a lot of damage in the short term.
What do you make of this new report in the Austrian TV interview where Vladimir Putin is saying that he and Donald Trump talk on the phone a lot? Now, it is, we have to now say, I guess, traditional from that previous pre-Trump world. Whenever those kinds of conversations occurred, they were generally made public by previous presidencies, correct?
That's exactly what I thought as soon as I saw that. Look, I describe in the book lots of 90-minute phone conversations with Obama and Putin. We would always read those out. As soon as I saw that, I wondered, they must be talking and not reading those calls out publicly, because there's only been a handful. And so it does beg the question, how much is Donald Trump talking to Vladimir Putin? What are they talking about? And by the way, why not read it out? What are they trying to hide?
Well, let's go to the other side of that. Why read it out? Why shouldn't the President of the United States have private phone calls with foreign leaders that never get publicly reported?
Well, put it this way. There's a public interest in knowing if the President of the United States is talking to the President of Russia or another major foreign power. We generally read out all conversations unless they were about something secret and sensitive. And, in the book I describe, I had lots of meetings with the Cubans that were secret, and we didn't want to read those out because we didn't want people to know that we had a diplomatic track going with Cuba. So the only times that we would choose to not read something out and be confidential is if there was a reason to keep that secret. And again, it makes you think, what is the reason that they might have to keep a conversation secret?
There's no telling what else they keep secret, since they don't publicly release who even visits the White House, which again is a break with the previous. What do you see at stake in information like that? We don't know the way we used to know who has been visiting the White House.
Well, it gives you a picture of who has influence in that White House. Are they meeting with lobbyists? Are they meeting with the type of people who have financial interest in what they're doing? Because Democrats don't have control of Congress, too, there's not oversight of these issues. What is the foreign corruption that's taking place? How often are certain foreign interests, are there people with foreign financial interests that might intersect with the Trump family's financial interests visiting the White House? All of those things could give you a picture of who has influence in the Trump White House, and we don't have that.
You were with President Obama for the full 8 years, the full ride. What's getting a lot of attention in your book is President Obama's reaction to election night, to the election of Donald Trump. And there's a lot of interpretation of what your book has to say, and the quotes of President Obama reflecting, wondering how this happened, wondering what he might have misread about the American voter, about the American public. Do you want to set anything straight? Are you hearing people misinterpret what you've reported the president to have said?
Well, just one thing. I mean, I think what it paints is a picture of him going through the same process that a lot of us did. He called me on election night and said, well, that happened. And, over the course of the next several days, the Comey letter, how much did Russia influence the outcome of the election? But, also, did we get something fundamentally wrong here? Did people want a different brand of politics from Obama, a progressive brand of politics? Did they want to just fall back into the kind of politics of grievance that Trump had? And he did say, was I 10 or 20 years too early?
What did he mean by that? That's the big quote that's getting all the attention.
Frankly, what he meant was there's a demographic tipping point that's going to happen in this country where it's more likely you're going to have more people who are president who look like Barack Obama, or there's an Asian Barack Obama or a Latino Barack Obama. And what's been misinterpreted is it was somehow arrogant. In fact, he was second-guessing, some of the things he'd done, and he was wrestling with it like everybody else. In the end, though, I do believe that, frankly, 10 or 20 years from now, America is going to look more like Barack Obama's America and his brand of politics than Donald Trump. This effort to turn back the clock is kind of the last gasp of a certain kind of politics, just like Putin represents that in Russia. The fact that those two, forces converged in our election, Putin and Trump, is, I think, part of the same story, two sides of the same coin. People who don't have a vision for the future, so all they can do is stoke up grievance and look to the past.
Ben Rhodes, the book is The World as It Is. It's the world as you had to learn that it is. You started off with a view of the world that's very different from the one that you ended with. Ben Rhodes, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, good to see you.
Really appreciate it. And when we come back, why the United Nations today says that the Trump administration is violating human rights. That's next.
Do your thing. Flee that nest. Find your inspiration. Seize that moment. Be extraordinary. Spread your wings. Mazda. Feel alive.
Welcome to my grooming studio.
Wow, this is quite the busy place.
Right? Hi. This is the product for you. The new Bissell Crossway Pet Pro vacuums and washes at the same time. It's better than ever for homes with pets.
Just one free hearing test at his local Miracle Ear helped Andrew hear more of the joy in her voice. Just one hearing test is all it took for him to hear more of her laugh and less of the background noise around him. For Helen, just one visit to her local Miracle Ear is all it took to learn how she can share more moments with her daughter. Just one free hearing test could help you hear more laughter, music, life. Call now for your free hearing test from an industry leader, Miracle Ear.
Legendary jockey Victor Espinoza is insatiable when it comes to competing. So is his horse when it comes to snacking. That's why he uses the Chase mobile app to pay practically anyone at any bank. Life lived Victor's way. Chase, make more of what's yours.
For my constipation, my doctor recommended I switch to Miralax. Stimulant laxatives forcefully stimulate the nerves in your colon. Miralax is different. It works with the water in your body, unblocking your system naturally.
Miralax, now available in convenient single-serve mix-and packs.
I need to work out all your issues.
We only got one issue. It's you.
He helps me out in a lot of ways.
For reach.
He gets my car detailed.
You name it.
And last week, I gave Marlon a very important stack of mail.
Oh, Lord.
You did remember to send the power bill.
It's me. Come on, you.
Marlon. The new season premieres Thursday on NBC.
Life is the sum of our choices. Choices define who we are.
I want you.
It's very exciting.
Order Stars for $6.99 per month for 12 months.
Tomorrow, a special American Ninja Warrior event.
This is Jurassic World night!
With Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard on a dino-sized course.
Oh!
And during Ninja Warrior, catch an exclusive sneak preview of Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. American Ninja Warrior Jurassic World Night, tomorrow on NBC.
The United States of America, at the order of the President of the United States and the Attorney General, is putting children in cages tonight. That is the country we now live in. Today, Attorney General Jeff Sessions was busy defending the Trump administration's policy that has now been condemned by the United Nations. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights said this today about the United States' new practice of separating parents and children at the southern border, including some who have broken no law, who have just presented themselves at the border seeking asylum. The UN said it amounts to arbitrary and unlawful interference in family life and is a serious violation of the rights of the child. Past presidential administrations have, to varying degrees, tried to be international champions of human rights, pressing regimes around the world to improve their records on human rights. But the Trump administration, more than any other in history, simply ignores the subject of human rights. Human rights is not even on the agenda with the world's greatest human rights violator, North Korea. The President of the United States actually intends to have the first ever presidential summit meeting with North Korea's dictator without ever mentioning human rights. And now the United Nations, to America's great shame, has turned its human rights focus to our southern border. And this is what the Attorney General of the United States had to say about it today.
Yes. What's happening is we're having more people coming, bringing children with them, entering between the ports of entry illegally, and they're not, you cannot give them immunity. That's an offense. We believe every person that enters the country illegally like that should be prosecuted, and you can't be given immunity to people who bring children with them recklessly and improperly and illegally. They should never do that.
There is not a new surge of parents and children coming to the southern border. There is no new surge, as the Attorney General is trying to suggest that there is. What is new is this Trump policy. The President of the United States spent his day today tweeting angrily about his Attorney General, not because his Attorney General's lack of sympathy for children at our southern border, but because of the Attorney General's lack of sympathy for the President, the lack of sympathy that allowed Jeff Sessions to recuse himself from the investigation of the President instead of not recusing himself and preventing any investigation of the President. The President saw some children today. He saw them on the south lawn of the White House, where he was trying to get the country to think about football and the national anthem. And even though he himself does not know the words of the national anthem, that is how the President spent his day. The President who has ordered American government workers to rip children from their mothers' and fathers' arms. The President who is literally, according to Senator Jeff Merkley's report, putting those children in cages. The President who is now, according to the United Nations, a human rights violator. We will have more on the President who has decided to put kids in cages next with Maria Teresa Kumar.
American journalism, all of it, is the best anywhere in the world. This land contains an incredible quality and quantity of good common sense, and it's in no danger of being led down the primrose path by a journalist. At the risk of sounding presumptuous, I would say to all of you, be patient and have courage, for there will be better and happier news one day, if we work at it.
At Farmers, we've seen almost everything, so we know how to cover almost anything, even a cactus calamity.
I read that the saguaro can live to be 200 years old.
How old do you think that one is?
My guess would be about...
I'd say about 200.
Yeah.
Gives houseplant a whole new meaning. And we covered it. Talk to farmers. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Back to my home, the only place I feel alone. I need the fire and soil. Now I'm gonna tell my mama that I'm a traveler. I'm gonna follow the sun. Now I'm gonna tell my mama
Transitions, right under control.
Visit your local VisionWorks to ask about Transitions brand lenses.
At the end of the day, there's nothing better than a glass of wine, especially that first sip. The taste is so important, and wine just doesn't taste as good a day after it's been opened. What if you didn't actually have to open the bottle at all? With my Coravin, I never need to pull the cork. I simply insert the needle, tip, and pour. The cork reseals to preserve the rest of the bottle for months or even years. At home, relaxing with a glass of wine, or entertaining friends, just insert, tip, and pour. Buy Coravin at these fine retailers.
I've inherited his curly hair. You wouldn't know it, but back in the day, he had quite the mop.
Is this genetics? That's what I was asking. Yes, it is. Your grandfather had it too.
I can't think of what physical ways I actually look like my dad.
I think getting 23andMe as a gift for my dad would be an amazing idea.
This Father's Day, get 30% off each kit at 23andme.com or an authorized retailer.
It all started with a cardboard box. It's what my colleague put his computer on when sitting all day at the office became too painful. So we designed the first Veridesk. Lift it to stand when you want to, lower it to sit when you need to.
I have more energy and I get more done.
Our boss got the company to buy them for us, and I love it.
If you sit every day for work, the Veridesk is a must.
It's sturdy and comes fully assembled. And if you don't love it within 30 days, we'll pick it up. Go to Veridesk.com to order yours.
Over the last 24 hours, you've finished preparing him for college. In 24 hours, you'll send him off thinking you've done everything for his well-being. But meningitis B progresses quickly and can be fatal, sometimes within 24 hours. While meningitis B is uncommon, about 1 in 10 infected will die. Like millions of others, your teen may not be vaccinated against meningitis B. Meningitis B strikes quickly. Be quick to talk to your teen's doctor about a meningitis B vaccine.
On the day when the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights said that the United States is violating the human rights of children on the southern border, the Attorney General said this.
It's certainly not our goal to separate children, but I do think it's clear, it's legitimate to warn people who come to the country unlawfully, bringing children with them, that they can't expect that they'll always be kept together.
Joining our discussion now, Maria Teresa Kumar, President and CEO of Voto Latino and an MSNBC contributor. And Maria Teresa, the first point that I want to make here, and please feel free to make any point you want, is that this is a new policy. This is not forced on the Trump administration by law. There is no law that has to be changed to change this policy. This is a choice of Donald Trump and Jeff Sessions.
That's exactly right. And this was actually an idea that Chief of Staff Secretary Kelly, when he was Homeland Security Secretary, first floated to do so. The ACLU immediately went into play saying that that was going to be unlawful. And what the UN did today was basically marking what the United States is doing is violating the rights of children. On May 7th, Jeff Sessions stood before the American people and decided that he was going to separate parents from children because he felt that it was a way to deter people from coming to the border. And what my fellow Americans need to understand are the children and the families that are coming right now on the border. They're not normal immigrants. They're actually refugees. Most of them are fleeing violence. They're fleeing extreme poverty, and that they are traversing 3 to 4 countries to get to the border. And by law, we are supposed to be able to process them when they are seeking asylum. Under this new policy, that is not happening. Instead, what they are saying, the Department of Homeland Security is processing them as criminals and separating their the parents from families under that auspices. But it's actually contrary to precedent. It's contrary to the law.
And Maria Teresa, when the president has tweeted about this, he has, of course, blamed Democrats who have absolutely nothing to do with it. But what you see in that is the president implicitly agreeing that this is a bad policy. That's why he's trying to blame it on the law and blame it on Democrats.
Well, it's completely obfuscating his responsibility. Again, this came directly from his White House. The new policy to separate children from parents at the border is not law. It's not legislation. It was not passed by Congress. It was coming as an equivalent of an executive order coming out of the White House, out of his directive that Jeff Sessions is implementing and that Secretary Nielsen is executing against.
And the idea that the White House has no power to stop this tomorrow.
Nonsense, Lawrence. That's absolutely, that's nonsense. He literally woke up on May 6th and decided on May 7th that he was going to implement this policy. He phoned up Jeff Sessions and basically said, Jeff, you have to implement this. So this is completely out of the discretion of the White House. This has nothing to do with Congress. And if anything, this should be signaling to members of Congress on the Republican and Democratic side that they have to pass some sort of comprehensive immigration reform. Because what is coming out of the White House because of a lack of unified voice on immigration is a de facto immigration policy that is basically not only separating children from parents and putting them into cages as children as young as 2. The ACLU has notified and basically alerted authorities that they have witnessed children as young as 53 weeks, Lawrence, actually facing court and a judge without a parent. Can you imagine that this is happening in modern-day America? And the fact that there's not more outrage? Where is the Republican leadership on this? By allowing the Trump administration to create not only these type of policies, but also converting documented immigrants, such as temporary protected status people, and rescinding DACA, the Trump administration is right now on a journey to create close to 1 million people that are currently documented, undocumented overnight by 2020. So by de facto, he's creating a whole new class of undocumented people. He's also creating a whole class of trauma among children. The United Nations had it absolutely right. This is a violation of children's rights. This is not who we are. We are the ones, if anything, on the global stage, oftentimes telling people what we expect on how you treat minorities, how you treat the most vulnerable among us. This is not leadership.
And Jeff Merkley is the one in the United States Senate who really has shown leadership on this by going down there to the border to try to find out exactly what's going on. We're going to have to leave it there. Maria Teresa Kumar, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Lawrence, for covering this.
And as you know, as you can tell on the screen, it is election night in America tonight. That means Steve Kornacki joins us next to tell us what to watch.
Over. Hey, wanna try it? Okay, here we go. Over.
1, 2.
Hey, whoa, pop. Your shoes are tied.
Ensure he's well taken care of, even as you build your own plans for retirement. See how Lincoln can help protect your savings from the impact of long-term care expenses at lincolnfinancial.com.
Promote what makes your business great with Vistaprint business cards. With more shapes, paper stocks, and finishes to choose from, you can create the card that's right for your business. 500 standard cards start at just $9.99 when you enter promo code 500cards at Vistaprint.com.
Prepare for your demise, Mr. Billingsley.
Do your worst, Doctor.
I will. First, a little presentation. Hijacking Earth's geothermal energy supply. Phase 1, choosing the right drill bit.
As long as evil villains reveal their plans, you can count on Geico saving folks money. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
This is my body of proof.
Proof of less joint pain and clearer skin.
This is my body of proof.
Proof that I can fight psoriatic arthritis.
With Humira.
Humira targets and blocks a specific source of inflammation that contributes to both joint and skin symptoms. It's proven to help relieve pain, stop further irreversible joint damage, and clear skin in many adults. Humira is the #1 prescribed biologic for psoriatic arthritis.
Humira can lower your ability to fight infections, including tuberculosis. Serious, sometimes fatal infections and cancers, including lymphoma, have happened, as have blood, liver, and nervous system problems, serious allergic reactions, and new or worsening heart failure. Before treatment, get tested for TB. Tell your doctor if you've been to areas where certain fungal infections are common, and if you've had TB, hepatitis B, are prone to infections, or have flu-like symptoms or sores. Don't start Humira if you have an infection.
Need more proof?
Ask your rheumatologist about Humira.
What's your body of proof?
Hey, DirecTV customer, you do lots of this, plenty of this, and can't live without this. That's just your thing. But what about your other thing? You know, the saving money thing. We'll switch to AT&T Wireless and get $15 off your DirecTV bill for life. Plus all the talk, text, and data you can handle with no overages ever, because that's our thing. Switch to AT&T, the nation's largest and most reliable network, and get more for your thing.
I need new struts for my 2010 Chevy. Let me see struts by AC Delco, KYB, and any under $50.
We might be able to get some struts from the warehouse.
Why watch the counterman tap on his computer and hope he chooses the right part? Go to rockauto.com. Auto and body parts from hundreds of manufacturers. Choose the brands, prices, and features you want. Auto parts at the lowest price. Conveniently delivered to your home or business.
All the parts your car will ever need, Rock Auto.
And hello again, everyone. I'm Steve Kornacki. Breaking news update here on those California primary election results. Again, we've been following this possibility of Democrats, would they get locked out of the general election ballot in one of these districts in California that they think they can flip this fall, that they need to flip this fall to win back the House. Dana Rohrabacher, Republican in 48. This is one we've been keeping a particularly close eye on. You see the situation here. There is a lot of confusion around this one right now for a couple reasons. Number one, there are a lot of votes that are still going to be cast. There are a lot of votes that are still going to come in through the mail. So there's days probably of counting here. But right now you got this situation. Our official results showing a second Republican hundreds of votes away from joining Dana Rohrabacher there in the top two. That would be the dread scenario for Democrats. There are reports online. Dave Wasserman, Cook Political Report, he follows this stuff very closely. He's saying he's taking a look at these, and he thinks there may be a tabulation error that could result in more votes for the fourth place candidate here, Harley Ruda, a Democrat. Of course, the Democrats were kind of split here organizationally on who to back. If that is true, and we have a spotter out there trying to track down the information, we don't know if that's true. We don't know if that's what's going on there. But if that is indeed what proves to be the case, then you could have Ruda potentially moving up there into second, maybe complicating with Bao, maybe creating a three-way tie for second place. There a lot of chaos, a lot of uncertainty there, so we're keeping a close eye on that. Meanwhile, Jason Johnson, John Podhoretz, they are back with us. And Jason, let me just start with you. And again, it is interesting to look at these results in California. It varies in some of these districts. But I do think the story we're seeing here tonight, in part, is each base here, each party seems to be excited about this election in California.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, you've got Democrats who are saying this is our opportunity to take our country back, and you've got Republicans saying this is our opportunity to keep our country in the hands that it's already in. But what's also been important, and this was mentioned sort of in the last segment, you know, the issue of immigration is not just a sort of racial bugaboo in California. It's a functional, practical issue. If you're talking immigration in Ohio, you're probably just sort of dog whistling. You're talking immigration in California, and there are people who have concerns. Maybe the majority of Californians don't necessarily want a border wall, but that is bolstering a lot of these Republicans. And also, we have to see, Latino turnout hasn't necessarily been commensurate with what some of the resistance numbers we've been seeing in other states. Look, Villagrosa is not going to get into the top two votes to be governor, and that's telling in a state like California. So it remains to be seen if any of these late votes are going to change this dynamic. But if Democrats really want to be successful this fall, they have got to do a better job of turning out Latino voters, and their enthusiasm has to continue. It can't just be about punching Trump in the nose in a primary. It's got to go all the way through to November.
Meanwhile, John, in terms of energy on the Republican side, and again, I looked at New Jersey turnout figures there earlier, maybe not as encouraging for Republicans in New Jersey, where there's some very competitive races this fall. But in California, these results, I think, on the more encouraging side in terms of what they were looking for. If there was an uptick in Republican energy here, we're seeing, what would you account for? What do you think caused it?
I think that there is better news this year than last year. We've got unemployment at an 18-year low. We've got the economy humming along. The New York Times saying on Friday they couldn't come up with enough positive adjectives to describe the current condition of the economy. Republicans are feeling better. Whatever anxiety the president's behavior in 2016 was causing them, and whatever problems everybody may have with the substance of the Trump presidency, for Republicans, things have stabilized. And so they are not as depressed as they were in 2017. My view is, while some people may say that, Democrats really have to come up with a positive message, I think part of what is really important here, and was certainly the case in 10 and in 14 for Republicans against Democrats, is they got to depress Republicans. They got to remind Republicans and get part of it, the enthusiasm game is not only to have enthusiasm on your own side, but to depress the enthusiasm of the other side. And if Republicans continue to feel pretty good about where the country is, that's going to be helpful to them and is going to mitigate some of the effects of the Democratic enthusiasm we've seen since the election in 2016.
It is so interesting because we get these metrics, they call them, right? That's the generic ballot. We've been looking at that one, maybe tightening Trump's approval rating. We've had special elections where Democrats have done so well. We've got primaries. It's going to take a while, as we say, for these California results to come in. So we're going to see exactly what the lessons are there, what the hints are when it comes to party energy. But there are so many different variables, and you start to see, especially when California all comes in, I think a picture for the fall, a more clear picture taking shape. So we're going to continue to follow that picture as it emerges in California in the next few hours. John Podhoretz, Jason Johnson, thank you for joining us, and I'm Steve Kornacki. I'll be back with more updates later. Lawrence back with The Last Word. That's next.
Thrill seekers, performance enthusiasts, environmental heroes, same thing. We harness the power of electricity to create BMW i-Performance vehicles. No matter what powers it, we only make one thing, the ultimate driving machine. Experience the power of electric at your local BMW center.
Indoor and outdoor allergies can stand in the way of enjoying the moment. Allegra is the fastest non-drowsy allergy relief. In just 1 hour, it starts tackling tough allergy symptoms for 24 hours of relief. Get back to the moment with Allegra.
For every home project, HomeAdvisor finds trusted local pros. For every pro, you can read customer reviews. And for everybody's busy schedule, you can book appointments online. For every project, you have HomeAdvisor. Go to HomeAdvisor.com.
You use us to keep your dirty wars at arm's length from Washington.
We believe there to be an active threat.
You threaten my wife, my children? We need you to go in and clean up the mess.
They have something on you.
Finish the job, Max, and then go home.
Deep State, only on Epix.
With Expedia, you can book a flight, hotel, car, and activity all in one place. Everything you need to go. Expedia.
This is important for people with asthma.
Yes. It's a targeted medicine proven to help prevent severe asthma attacks and lower oral steroid use.
About 50% of people with severe asthma have too many cells called eosinophils in their lungs. Fasenra is designed to work with the body to target and remove eosinophils.
Fasenra is an add-on injection for people 12 and up with severe eosinophilic asthma. Don't use Fasenra for sudden breathing problems or other problems caused by eosinophils. Fasenra may cause headache, sore throat, and allergic reactions. Get help right away if you have swelling of your face, mouth, and tongue, or trouble breathing. Don't stop your asthma treatments unless your doctor tells you to. Tell your doctor if your asthma worsens or if you have a parasitic infection.
Fasenra is a targeted treatment for eosinophilic asthma.
That's important.
Ask an asthma specialist about Fasenra.
If you have a garden, you know weeds are low-down little scoundrels. Draw the line with Roundup. The Sure Shot wand extends with a protective shield and targets weeds more precisely right down to the root. Roundup, trusted for over 40 years.
Topics we cover on MSNBC every day, they're driven by big ideas, big themes, huge societal changes. And that's what we talk about on our new podcast. It's called Why Is This Happening?
Why Is This Happening with Chris Hayes. New episodes every Tuesday.
And here is Stephen Colbert with Rudy Giuliani's latest defense of the president.
He
he told the HuffPo, I don't know how you can indict the president while he's in office, no matter what it is, even if he shot James Comey. So there it is. The president can commit any crime he wants. He's a one-man purge, which will make a great new campaign slogan, Trump 2020, I could kill you in your sleep. But it's true. You could.
I could do it. I could, these hands.
Stephen Colbert gets tonight's Last Word. The 11th hour with Brian Williams starts now.